Near the edge of the galaxy, there is one planet by the name Kamino. Kamino is very much like many other Earth-like planets, except for it had very much went through a very drastic change in the distant past. The planet Kamino is a very specific planet to be as 100% covered by a deep ocean. But the true fact is that Kamino has always been a complete covered ocean planet. It all changed in the distant past. In the distant past, before this drastic change, Kamino used to be like a normal planet with landmass and even normal oceans, and Caminos lived in the cities on the surface on the land. But at some point in the distant history, all that would eventually change when a drastic change would affect the whole planet. And that drastic change came around 19,000 BBY when this planet's ice cap started to melt, which caused a very devastating effect on the whole planet. All the ice melted and it raised the whole world's ocean and eventually covered and consumed all the land masses on the surface and made the whole planet a complete covered ocean. This very devastating natural disaster went into history as the Great Flood by the surviving Kaminoans. This disaster went from an Earth-like planet to a completely ocean-covered planet, and Kaminoans had no other way to survive. And Kaminoans, they weren't even not advanced enough for space travel, and they didn't want to ask the Galactic Republic for help for emergency because they were afraid that the Republic would colonize their planet. So they choose not to ask any outside help during this devastating natural disaster. So instead, they choose their own thought about this. But this disaster not only affected the whole planet became as a global ocean. It only that the surviving Kaminoans crowded themselves on other cities that they had built before the flood, and soon starvation and disease would eventually affect the rest of the population. So they eventually went to something that would eventually one day save their whole species from extinction. They turned into cloning. They did this selective breeding, which to be the strongest survivor, and which eventually became how they became cloning masters. And they never forgot the big disaster, the Great Flood, how they affected their ancestors' life and also the planet. Having this such disaster will never be forgotten. And this is all we know about the Great Flood disaster in Kaminoan's history in Star Wars Expanded Universe.